Women have several options for avoiding unwanted pregnancies. There's birth control pills, patches, implants, vaginal rings, condoms, and the birth control that's becoming increasingly popular. This is an IUD, or an intrauterine device. An IUD is a tiny T-shaped device that's inserted into the cervix. These devices are 99% effective. There are two types of IUDs, copper and hormonal. Copper IUDs release copper ions, and these ions create a toxic environment that kills sperm. Hormonal IUDs release a hormone called progestin, which thickens cervical mucus and makes it impossible for sperm to reach the egg. IUDs are considered to be the most effective form of birth control, and they're the second most used form of contraception in the world. Though IUDs don't prevent against STDs, it's a completely reversible form of birth control. And what's more, depending on the version, IUDs can prevent pregnancy for 3 to 10 years. So why aren't more women in the US using them? To understand why IUD usage in America is relatively low, we have to go back to the 1960s. That's when two contraceptive options arrived in the States, the pill and the IUD. At first, the IUD was a hit. By the 70s, nearly 10% of women in the US used the IUD for contraception. But things changed in 1973. That's when the CDC found out that the Dalkin Shield, which is a plastic IUD, was causing a lot of health problems for women, including miscarriages and, in some cases, death. Eventually, more than 200,000 women would testify against Dalkin Shield's manufacturer, saying the device caused them personal injury. In the years that followed, women and manufacturers became wary of IUDs. Manufacturers moved their businesses outside of the US to avoid further lawsuits. Usage fell below 2% by 1988 and stayed that way throughout the 90s and early 2000s. This had an unexpected consequence. Due to lower demand, fewer providers got experience inserting IUDs, so they tended not to recommend the device for fear of being sued if something went wrong. Meanwhile, in Europe, IUD usage continued to rise. In 2006, 27% of women in Norway and 17% of women in France used IUDs. That same year, only 4% of women in the US used IUDs. One reason for this disparity is cost. While several European countries covered the cost of IUDs in the early 2000s, the US did not. An IUD can cost up to $1,000 if you're paying out of pocket. That covers the cost of both the IUD and its insertion. Even with insurance, many patients in the US just couldn't afford the high upfront fees, so they opted for other forms of birth control. The passage of the Affordable Care Act in 2012 changed all that. The law required insurance companies to cover the costs of contraceptives, including IUDs. About 7% of women used IUDs in the US in 2012. By 2016, that number jumped to 10%. Another recent event also caused a spike in IUD usage: the 2016 election. Rolling back Obamacare was one of Trump's core campaign promises, so his election sent a lot of women running to their OBGYN. Fearing for their reproductive rights, at least 134,285 women asked their doctors about getting an IUD. That's a 16% increase from the number of women inquiring about IUDs in 2016. While the IUD has grown in popularity, attitudes about the device haven't shifted completely. Women in the US still largely opt for birth control pills or condoms over IUDs. But given how Trump's election caused a rush on the device in 2016, 2020 could do the same if Trump runs for re-election. The good news? The longest-lasting IUDs prevent unwanted pregnancies for up to 10 years, which is long enough to outlast 2 terms of Trump.